Amman of Germany in 3 sets. Golf will play Myra Andreeva of Russia in the second round Wednesday night. Michelle Obama was a surprise guest speaker last night when the U.S. Open celebrated 50 years of equal pay for men and women in professional tennis. Today is final cut day for the NFL's 32 teams. Each team must reach the 53-man roster limit by 1 p.m. today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
First things first.
First things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule, 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not to unsettle you. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First Black on Talk Radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DePrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted Black and Brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DePrima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DePrima. This show right here is called First Things First. And my first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders. And let's go. We do have a lot to talk about today. I think you know how we do this. Hour one, we look local, what's going on the left coast in California, around your neighborhood, your community. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive on a topic or with a person of interest. And we have a packed show today. You're always invited in. 800-920-1580. Hour two, we'll be talking with Dr. Gerald Horn, one of our top scholars, also has a law degree that might come in handy with all the topics in the news. And we'll be joined by Denise Pines and Dr. Maria Uloco in hour three, talking about sexual health and well-being. I'm so happy to be joined this hour by my colleague who is on the air holding down Afternoon Drive every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. She's also an attorney. She's America's go-to expert host and commentator on compelling legal, political, women's, children, and even celebrity issues. She's one of the nation's leading voices in the media, an award-winning attorney, advocate, legal and social issues commentator. She's been on shows from Dr. Phil, The Doctors, to World News Tonight, and of course, she is a CNN legal analyst. Attorney Areva Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. First of all, let me just say I had never heard your intro song. I
Oh,
love it.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah,
I
Money
was
B
like,
from
okay,
Digital
I
Underground.
love that.
Thank you.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's amazing. It fits you perfectly. So kudos to your the artist who wrote it and performed it. Really, really well done.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah, my brother, Alexander Marlowe, did the track. That's
oh,
my niece singing on the choruses, and then my friend
oh
Money
my
B from Digital
God.
Underground put down those bars. So thank you. I'm glad you like
Family
it.
affair. Okay,
Family
family
affair, every
affair. I
day,
love
every
it.
day. Yeah, absolutely. You
I
know a
love
little
that.
something about that. Well, yeah, congratulations on your rain and afternoon drives. I mean, you're doing an incredible job, and you're also making history. No black woman on any talk radio station has held down afternoon drives. I think it's your first official talk radio job. And you are crushing it. So congratulations.
Thank you, and you are my radio mentor. So I would not be where I am in radio, transitioning. Well, not transitioning, but adding radio to my TV work. So thank you so much for being there and being so supportive. Sisters lifting up other sisters, women supporting women. It's what it's all about. So
Yeah,
thank you.
you're too kind. But yeah, the sisterhood is definitely real, especially around here. And, I say good morning, but it doesn't feel like a great morning, Attorney Areva Martin, because the sentence that was handed down to Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas, of course, our beloved former city council member twice, of course, he was in the state Senate, he was a supervisor, and on yesterday, U.S. District Judge Dale Fisher, who was the presiding judge for his trial, handed down a 3.5-year prison term. He was also fined $30,000. And then after those 3 years, another 3.5 years, another 3 years of supervised release. You did a powerful editorial about this case. Were you surprised by this? How did you feel when you heard this sentence?
I wish I could say I was surprised. I was not, but it didn't make the impact any less. It was a body blow. It felt really, really bad. I wasn't in the courtroom. I'm actually in New York this week. I was able to do my show on the road from New York yesterday, and it was a surreal moment in a lot of ways. We knew it was coming. I've been covering the trial from its inception. I had some of the best lawyers, criminal lawyers in our city, helping analyze the case. We did gavel to gavel coverage every day of the trial. We did the post trial motions. We, of course, did the sentencing hearing yesterday. So we were prepared for it. We had discussed it. This was the range that we had anticipated. So not surprised, but again, it was still very, very disappointing, very shocking, very painful. Let me just give it up for our leader, our fearless leader, Tavis Smiley. He had the foresight, the insight, the vision to come to me early on and say, Areva, I have an idea. We should be the station in California that covers this trial so that we can have a perspective and give our audience the perspective of Black media, Black lawyers, Black community leaders. And he said, we should have someone in that courtroom every day that then comes on your show and then, bring on lawyers to break down what is happening. And I am so grateful to him and thank him for having the vision to do that, because the coverage, Dominique, of this case has been horrific. Mainstream media, which I happen to be a part of, as well as Black media, I just did this trial such a disservice. Did our community, I think, such a disservice, and proved why Black media is so important and so needed. And so again, Tavis, in his brilliance as a radio, personality extraordinaire and our radio station owner knew that this would be important and put in place the mechanism and the process for us to be one of the, I think, only station in the state that covered it gavel to gavel. So we had a very unique voice and a unique perspective that I've heard from people all over the country. Really, really appreciated the coverage.
Yeah, I agree with you, Areva, because I, even as a person who keeps up with the news as much as I can, it's my job, what I heard on your show was not at all similar to what I was reading or hearing elsewhere. And it was important because it did give a completely different and very legitimate legal analysis that was not present, and even some things that I felt were missed by some of our, our paper of record and some other coverage, just in terms of, real factual things they missed or emphasis that, created confusion. So I thank you for that coverage. I have legal questions about what's next and what this means. And so you've been kind enough to join me this morning, even though you have your show this afternoon, and I appreciate it when we come forward. I want to talk about, how this plays out. People on social media who don't know anything. I was shocked to see some black folks celebrating this. I think they don't understand, but maybe I'm being condescending. Maybe they're just politically opposite of how I think and function, how my analysis, but also like how will this, what happens next, and how is this really going to play out and impact both Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas, his family, and our community. We'll look at that and more when we come forward with attorney Areva Martin. I'm Dominique DePrima, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Labor Day savings start now at Lowe's. Get up to an additional $1,500 off select major kitchen appliances. And save $100 off select laundry pairs, priced $1,396 or more. Plus, pick up the latest DeWalt PowerStack 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit and get a select Bear tool free. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/30. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for details. While supplies last.
Taco Bell's new grilled cheese dipping taco is, it's completely new. It's got a fresh fried white corn shell filled with cheese and new slow braised shredded beef with even more cheese grilled outside the shell. But what makes it really special is the dip. It comes with 2 sauces and you dip in one or both. Red sauce, then nacho cheese sauce, maybe more red sauce. This is a next level taco situation that'll have you acting brand new. The new grilled cheese dipping taco. Get one on the Taco Bell app today. At participating U.S. Taco Bell stores for a limited time only while supplies last. Contact store for participation which varies.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for the Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job paid training, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus are now even putting their money in your pocket with a one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus. Let us connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement and passionate about making a difference in your community, then we invite you to join the team. Start your journey by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more information, visit culvercitybus.com or call the live customer service operator at 310-253-6500. Again, 350-253-6500.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right now.
Attorney Areva. Okay, a little invasive moment there, but Attorney Areva Martin is with us. Couldn't have a better person to join us this morning. If you have a question, and I know that you do because I get tired of saying, well, I'm not an attorney, but here's what I think. Call us 800-920-1580. I get confused by this idea. The judge said that that Mark Ridley-Thomas committed serious crimes and has not accepted responsibility, has shown no remorse. Mark Ridley-Thomas did not admit to these crimes, defended himself in court, and is appealing. So how is it fair to tag Dr. Ridley-Thomas for no remorse when he's appealing the case? You don't confess to a case that you're appealing.
That is one of many, Dominique, statements that this judge made throughout the sentencing hearing yesterday that was quite shocking. And we believe, many of us in the legal community believe, will be the basis, part of the basis of the appeal that his team has vowed to file. And let me just address those African-American people in particular who are celebrating. Look, Mark Ridley-Thomas has been an elected official for the better part of 40 years, if not more. And, of course, in that time period, you are going to make a lot of friends to be in office that long, and you're also going to make some enemies. And Mark Ridley-Thomas, like many powerful and effective leaders, had his share of both, very, very staunch supporters, but he also had people that didn't like his politics, his policies, or just personally didn't like him. But I want black folks to be clear. What happened to Mark Ridley-Thomas is every person's, and should be every black person's, nightmare. And although you may not like him personally, I hope that people can separate what they feel for him on an emotional level from what happened to him from a criminal justice standpoint, because most of the same people you're talking about, and I've seen some of those same folks, are people who believe in criminal justice reform, are people that acknowledge that we have a dual justice system, one that disfavors and disadvantages people of color. So, I just would hope that folks, can separate their personal feelings and recognize that we all have a lot to lose. And we have to stand in solidarity on issues of criminal justice reform. We have to stand in solidarity when a person of color, a black man in particular, is treated by our criminal justice system in a way that is different than those who are not African American. Because I'm sorry, that could be you, that could be your brother, that could be your uncle, that could be your husband, that could be your son. That could be someone very close to you, and you are going to want this community, our community, to stand in solidarity with you. So let's not forget that we all are subject to being victimized by this criminal justice system. So we better be careful about throwing darts at someone when we may find ourselves on the receiving end of that over prosecution, of that over sentencing that we talk about when we say that criminal justice reform needs to happen in this country, and it needs to happen today.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a bunch of folks that just have this thing like, oh, we're anti-corruption and all politicians are corrupt. But to me, that analysis is not thorough, because it doesn't break down exactly, as you did on your show, what Dr. Ridley-Thomas is accused of, was convicted of, and what he has done, and over the course of a long and dedicated career, that helps individuals in the community. It's not a legacy of corruption and
No.
and greed. That's just not at all Dr. Ridley-Thomas's legacy. If you are being objective, even if you're not black, but most especially if you are. So I found that disappointing, but also, I guess, not super surprising.
No, and in these generalizations that all politicians are corrupt. Look, they say all lawyers are corrupt.
Yeah, I guess
I am in that category of professionals that often gets labeled like that. But that's you've got to have a more nuanced analysis when you talk about an entire field of people. And I tell people that when they come down on all prosecutors. No, all prosecutors aren't horrible, evil people. And if we didn't have African American prosecutors, we would say that that's blatantly unfair. So we can elevate our analysis and we can be objective. And like I said, we can have our personal feelings about someone and we can dislike someone. But at the same time, we can recognize that this struggle for criminal justice reform is real. And some of the things that happen in this case are quintessentially things that happen to black folks that don't often happen to white people in our system. And if you believe that, we deserve to be treated equally, this is a case that I would ask people either say nothing if you can't figure out how to be in solidarity, or look at those issues that, again, are plaguing our community and that cause us to be over-incarcerated, that cause issues of mass incarceration. And don't divorce yourself from those same arguments simply because it's Mark Ridley-Thomas.
I mean, former police chief Bernard Parks, who ran against Ridley-Thomas and lost for supervisor, says in his statement where he's trying to get the judge to even go further than what the feds were asking for and really throw the book at Ridley-Thomas, which to me, I'm friendly with Parks, but to me it seems like sour grapes. But the thing that stood out the most is that he implies that the defense of Mark Ridley-Thomas is weaponizing race by saying that, that race is a factor here. How did you receive that?
First of all, race is a factor in everything that happens in this country. And what a naive and disingenuous and intellectually disingenuous statement, Mr. Parks. And I have a lot of respect for Bernard Parks. I really hated to see him insert himself in this matter. He wrote a letter that was really full of a lot of misstatements, misinformation. And it was sad to me because, again, talk about weaponized, it appears that he was being weaponized. He was being used by the prosecution, again, to insert himself in a matter that he didn't have all the facts. He did not sit in that courtroom every day. I can't believe that he read transcripts, that he read evidence, that he did anything that made himself put himself in a position where he could even opine in the way that he did. So I'm not sure why he felt the need to do that if he was solicited, and that's what my editorial, I asked the question, was he solicited by the prosecution to submit that letter? And the prosecution submitted the letter without Dominique advising the court that he lost to Mark Ridley-Thomas in 2008, that seat to be the supervisor for the 2nd District, that they did have a long-standing political rival. And that was information that the court should have had. And the judge actually cited from Bernard Parks' letter without making reference to the fact that he is someone that has been a political rival of Mark Ridley-Thomas. So, again, put yourself in the position of someone that is being sentenced by a federal judge and someone you have had a rivalry with for years submits a letter, and the prosecution, whose job is supposed to be to seek justice, not wins at all costs. This isn't a competition. This isn't Survivor. Doesn't inform the court that history that you and I just articulated.
Yeah.
Would you think that's fair? I don't think so.
Let's go to Charleston, calling us from Culver City. Good morning, Charleston. Hey, Charleston, you're on with
Good
attorney
morning,
Areva
everybody.
Martin and me, Dominique DePrima.
Can you hear me, Dominique?
Now I do, yes.
Okay. My thing is this. I'm not gloating for what happened to Ridley-Thomas. Actually, I wrote them a couple of times when he first got in trouble to tell them to ditch that judge because I knew her, and I knew the things that she did. So my thing is this. She's going to say something about dirty hands. The stuff that you got trying to put him in jail for, come on, Dale Fisher. Now, you did some stuff that you should be in jail for 20 years. You got caught with drugs, paraphernalia. You was a madam. Come on now.
See,
and we got to stop this stuff.
Charleston, you've said that. Okay, just a sec. You've said that to me before, but I don't find any record of that anywhere. I looked it up.
I sent. You got to go to DuckDuckGo and just type in Dale Fisher. Dale Fisher arrested, and you're gonna see. I sent you the ripoff report. If you look at the ripoff report, Dale Fisher is there.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'm not aware of that history either, Dominique. I do know, and veteran prosecutor Bobby Grace was one of the legal experts that I had helping cover the trial, and Bobby Grace knew Dale Fisher because she was previously a state court judge in the California state court system, Los Angeles County State Court. So he knew her and knew of her reputation as being a very tough judge who gave out tough and harsh sentences. So I'm not aware of the history that your caller just identified, but I do know her by reputation, and I've read, some of her previous opinions, but not aware of the history just articulated.
The clock, Areva Martin, we got a minute and a half here before news and traffic. So I wanted to circle back since we were talking about the judge real quick. You said some of the statements that she made may end up in the appeal. How does that work, and what are you referring to?
Well, Mark Ridley-Thomas's team has 14 days from yesterday, the date of sentencing, to file an appeal, and the appeal will be made to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That's the Federal Court of Appeals, and they will decide whether to review the case or not. And if they decide to review it, his team will also then have an opportunity to ask the judge to allow him to remain out of custody pending a resolution of that appeal. And at the appellate level, that's when his team will comb the record, the entire trial record, from the day the jury was selected. They'll look at every ruling made by this judge, and they'll review the sentencing. And there are statements that were made by the judge. The statement you made reference to, the repeated statements on her part that he had not accepted responsibility. And this system, our system, does put defendants like Mark Ridley-Thomas in a very difficult position, because if you are adamant that you did not break the law and you exercise your Sixth Amendment rights to go to trial, our system then basically punishes you, exacts a tax, a trial tax is what it's commonly called, on you for going to trial. And there's something inherently unfair about that. And the judge continuing to make statements that he did not accept responsibility, I believe his appellate team will and should raise that, because he's not required to do that. That's not mandatory. And if he believes he did not commit the crime, and remember, there were 19 counts, he was acquitted of 12 of them. So most people would say, bravo, you did the right thing by exercising your Sixth Amendment rights to trial. Doesn't mean you have to win on every count, but nor should you be punished for exercising your constitutional rights.
News, traffic, and sports, and then more with attorney Areva Martin on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Idalia has now reached hurricane status. The National Hurricane Center reporting the Category 1 storm is packing maximum sustained winds of 75 miles an hour as it makes its way toward Florida. Forecasters expect Idalia to continue gaining strength, intensifying into an extremely dangerous major hurricane before it makes landfall tomorrow. The University of Southern California is providing a positive update on the son of African-American Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James. Trojans head coach Andy Enfield said Monday that Bronny James is doing well and attending classes after suffering cardiac arrest during a workout last month. James is expected to make a full recovery and return to the court in the near future. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? Call the accident guys to speak with a real expert attorney for a free consultation.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
LeBron's son Bronny is attending classes this week at USC. No word yet on when he'll be cleared to resume basketball activities. Bronny suffered a cardiac arrest on July 24th during a workout on the USC campus. Bronny was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. The U.S. Open tennis tournament kicked off Monday in New York City. Coco Gauff defeated Laura Siegemund of Germany in 3 sets. Gauff will play Myra Andreeva of Russia in the second round Wednesday night. Michelle Obama was a surprise guest speaker last night when the U.S. Open celebrated 50 years of equal pay for men and women in professional tennis. Today is final cut day for the NFL's 32 teams. Each team must reach the 53-man roster limit by 1 p.m. today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and is powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
First things first today is brought to you by Wealth Management Financial Advisors. They're offering tax services, financial planning, and more, whether you're a small business or a huge corporation, whether you're an individual or a nonprofit. It's time to get your finances in order. Find them at wealthmanagementlb.com. That's wealthmanagementlb.com. So happy to have with me this morning Attorney Areva Martin. You've seen her as a CNN legal analyst. She's also an author, and she's here, of course, Areva Martin in real time. She is our afternoon drive host from 4 to 6 weekdays. Okay, so I got to try to get all these questions in before we run out of time here. But you kind of broke down what's next. You talked about how they have to file appeal. So this idea that Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas has to go to jail, go into custody on November 13th, that is not taking into account the appeal. So once they file the appeal, they could ask for him to be out pending that appeal?
That's correct. So as you stated yesterday, what the judge did in her sentencing was give a date for him to turn himself in to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. If he were not filing an appeal, he would turn himself in on the 13th, and he would be November 13th, that is, and he would begin his serving his time. But his team made that very clear yesterday, will be filing within those 14 days that are mandatory, filing an appeal with the Ninth Circuit Federal Appellate Courts, asking that court to review what they are going to lay out as errors that were made in the trial. And if the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals agrees to review the case, then his team can ask for an opportunity for him to remain out on bail pending resolution. And appeals can take anywhere from 1 to 2 years, so he would not have to turn himself in. The appellate court would set some dates by which each side has to file its motions, its briefs, that is, and then there would be an actual hearing set, and arguments would be made to the appellate court. The court would then issue an order, and that order could be anything from finding that there were reversible errors, sending the case back to the trial court for a new trial. They could also overturn the 7 counts on which he was convicted, or they could affirm the conviction. So those are the options that are possible at the appellate level. The Judge Fisher, who we've been talking about some, when the request is made to her for him to remain out pending resolution of the appeal, she could say yes to that, and he could then continue to do what he has been doing, or she could say no. She could say no, and at that point he would still have to report on November 13th.
Wow. How likely is it that they'll take that appeal?
I think it's a very good chance that the Court of Appeals will determine that this is a case that should be reviewed, and that's because Mark Ridley-Thomas was actually convicted. The 7 counts on which he were convicted have to do with something called honest service fraud, and tied into that is the bribery and conspiracy charges. And the honest service fraud cause of action has been in flux, and many federal appellate courts have been making rulings on that federal. It's based on a federal statute, and there's a lot of ambiguity right now in terms of what qualifies for conviction based on that statute. So I think the appellate court will have interest in weighing in on it and determining if the actions carried out by Mark Ridley-Thomas and former USC Dean Marilyn Flynn meet the standards for being determined a convictionable offense. So I think there's a good chance that they will. Now, the million-dollar question is whether this trial court judge, will allow him to remain out on bail pending resolution of the appeal. And in talking again to one of my legal experts that joined me throughout the trial, Bobby Grace, he said he thinks, based on, prior experience with this judge, that that's a 50-50 chance.
Really?
So he doesn't put that at a high degree of probability in terms of her agreeing, but we don't know. She split the baby. You mentioned at the beginning of the show that MRT, as he is known by many in the community, was given 3.5 years. We should state that the prosecution had been pressing and pushing and arguing for a 6-year sentence. So she didn't split the baby evenly between 0 and 6 years. Mark Ridley-Thomas's team, or MRT's team, was asking for, I think, around an 18 to 21, 22-month sentence. So she, let's say she almost split the baby, a little more than half of 6. So we don't know what would happen if and when she is asked to make the determination about whether he can remain out of jail pending his appeal.
Okay, I thought that was near certainty because he's not a flight risk. And, it seems like that's well, I'm just going by perception, but generally it seems like that's a courtesy that judges do extend.
You would think, Dominique, but again, the probation department recommended that the sentence in this case be 18 months of confinement. And it's important to note that Marilyn Flynn, the co-indicted co-conspirator, now she did take a plea deal. She did not go to trial, but she was given 18 months of home confinement. So when you look at your co-conspirator getting 18 months of home confinement, you have to scratch your head and wonder how is it that the co-conspirator that went to trial and was acquitted of 12 of the counts ends up with a 3.5-year custodial sentence. So that doesn't bode well when you think about, as you just said, a judge granting courtesy to an individual who is definitely not a flight risk, has no criminal history, has been an incredible public servant who has dedicated upward of 4 decades of his life to public service. Why wouldn't it be an automatic, yes, you can remain at home in the community, continuing to do good work in the community while your appeal is pending? But that is not the criminal justice system that we have. And that's why, again, I started at the top of the show saying everyone that thinks that there's something to celebrate really needs to look more objectively, because this case, like so many other cases, raises so many important issues about our criminal justice system. And I'm sorry, Mr. Parks, those questions do go to the issue of race. Let's not ever get that twisted. This race is always front and center in our criminal justice system in terms of how African Americans are, the way that we are arrested, the number of times that we are arrested, the issue of prosecution, the issue of sentencing, race, and this is well documented. This isn't Areva Martin talking off the top of her head. This is documented in well-established research and studies by reputable organizations. This is something that you can Google and find if anyone has any questions about how we are treated, we being Black folks, in our criminal justice system.
Yeah, anti-Blackness in the criminal justice system. The data show it time and time again in every aspect. When we come forward, I do want to ask you about the discrepancy between the two sentences, because a lot of people are talking about that, what the dean got versus what MRT got. And also, is there, after the appeal, what happens, win or lose? Want to look at those things when we come forward with attorney Areva Martin talking about the sentencing of Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas on yesterday. And of course, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts. Hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, in downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Anyone can choose to make a difference. You can help people succeed, rebuild after disasters, protect the environment, or feed the hungry. Not only will you make a difference for others, but for yourself. You can earn money for college, learn career skills, and make friendships that last a lifetime. Make a difference. Choose your future. Choose AmeriCorps.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time, and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Attorney Areva Martin is with me right now. And before I get to the other questions that I already teed up for you, Attorney Martin, I got to ask you about fundraising. If I'm Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas and I now have to mount an appeal, and I've already spent a whole bunch of money on this, pretty well-respected legal team, I got to raise money, right?
Yes, and I believe there was a legal defense fund that was established early on in this process. As you said, he had a very well-respected legal team, and lawyers are very expensive. And I know he did raise a fair amount of money for that team, and I suspect that he is continuing to try to raise money. And there are many, many folks in this community that contributed to that legal defense fund, and I suspect others who continue to believe in him and believe in the work and the legacy that he has left will support him as he pursues this appeal. And again, Dominique, I really want to stress to folks how important it is to look at this case objectively. You said you wanted to talk about the sentencing disparities.
Yeah.
You have a 70-plus-year-old white woman who was indicted, and in her indictment, she was identified as a co-conspirator. So a conspiracy are two people getting together and plotting and planning to engage in conduct which is criminal. So it's not you being pressured by me. You're not a victim. You and I agree to commit a crime, to rob a bank, to defraud our employer. And typically in a case of conspiracy where there are co-conspirators who are indicted, you would expect there to be some level of symmetry in how those individuals are treated by our criminal justice system. Unfortunately, in our system, if you decide to plead, and people take plea deals for lots of reasons. Sometimes they don't have the money or the resources to mount a defense. Other times they may decide they don't want to go through the stress of a trial. They don't want to be forced to confront a prosecution team. They don't want to be humiliated by a tough cross-examination. They may have health reasons. Again, it's just a myriad of reasons. Doesn't mean that they are necessarily guilty of the crime. They just may decide that it's in their best interest to take a plea deal. And in our system, if you do that, if you take a plea deal, particularly in the federal court system, you will be given a more lenient sentence in most cases than the individual that decides, look, I didn't do this, I'm not guilty, I do have the financial resources, or maybe even I want to use the public defender, but for whatever reason, I want to exercise my right, and it is a right given to me under the Constitution. And if you are found guilty in that case where you have exercised your rights, you, in the federal system again, are likely to receive a penalty that is harsher than your co-conspirator who maybe took the plea deal. But then the question becomes, even accepting that, which again, on its face, makes no sense and is fundamentally unfair and something that we should all be challenging. But even if you accept that in this case, one person, i.e. the white woman, gets 18 months at home, and the black man gets 3.5 years in custody. There's something fundamentally unfair, asymmetrical about that sentencing. And if you look at the report written by the prosecution with respect to Marilyn Flynn, they literally rewrote the narrative. They no longer talk about her as if she is a co-conspirator that engaged in this conspiracy to commit the crime, but they paint her as a victim, as someone who was pressured. They use terms like shakedown, and they paint her as someone who was, forced into this criminal conduct because she had no choice. She had no options. And there is something fundamentally unfair about that, and it plays into so many racist tropes about the violent black man and the weak and frail and fragile black woman, white woman that is seduced by the powerful, violent black man. So that is a theme in this trial. That's a theme in this sentencing. And if you read the briefs that were written by the prosecution, you will see that theme played out. And it's ugly.
When we come forward, we'll get closing arguments here from attorney Areva Martin. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We've got a lot to talk about.
race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And I'm Dominique DePrima here with attorney Areva Martin. We've been unpacking the sentencing of Dr. Mark Ridley-Thomas that happened on yesterday. So, I mean, in closing, you probably don't have time to answer all of this, but people are asking how much of that time will he really do? Is there an appeal after the appeal? Or will this Ninth Circuit be the end of the line? And what else must we know about this case?
So real quickly, in the federal system, yes, he is likely to serve the entire time. There are some circumstances where someone might be released early. We particularly saw that around COVID when there were lots of folks who got early release because of COVID conditions or illnesses. And again, so there are some exceptions, but as a general rule, defendants are likely to and are expected to serve the full amount of their sentence. In terms of appeals beyond the appeal, yes, if you're not successful at the at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, there's always the Supreme Court. So that is an option. But again, the Supreme Court takes a very limited number of cases each year. So again, if you're unsuccessful at the Ninth Circuit, not likely that you would get any success even in having the Supreme Court accept your case as a case that they will review. So the Ninth Circuit is really probably the last court that will have an opportunity to weigh in on this case. And as I said, the Ninth Circuit could send the case back to the trial court, and the prosecution would have to decide if they want to yet mount a second trial, or oftentimes when cases are reversed on appeal, there is some, plea that is entered, some way that is worked out. Let's call it a settlement agreement, for lack of a better term, just to dispose of the case. So we'll have to see what happens on appeal. I think the most important decision next in this case is once the appeal is filed, notice of appeal over the next 14 days, and the request is made to the trial court judge to allow MRT to remain out pending the appeal. That's kind of the next big thing that we'll be watching for.
Yeah, we just a minute here, Areva Martin. What can we do? Is there anything the public can do at this point, or it's pretty much out of our hands?
I think the public should continue to follow this, definitely continue to follow my show and the legal panel that we put together, KBLA's Justice Correspondent Deion Raymond, Mansfield Collins, and Bobby Grace. I'll have them on my show when the notice of appeal is filed, when the request is made to the court for MRT to remain out. CD10 Voices, I think, is a newsletter that is being disseminated by those supporters in the 10th District that continue to support Mark Ridley-Thomas. I know there's a group of black pastors that have continued to support him. So definitely check our website, KBLA, because we've been providing updates on many of the events and activities that the black pastors and others have been engaged in to provide support to MRT and his family. Again, I think, and pray. We are a praying community. Pray for him, pray for his family, pray for our community. And again, let's all rededicate ourselves to criminal justice reform, because again, this may not have impacted your family personally, but all of us. I don't know any black folks who have not been impacted by the criminal justice system one way or the other. And whenever we have an opportunity to stand up and speak out against injustices in our system, we all should be doing that.
Attorney Areva Martin, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dominique.
News, traffic, and sports right now.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Idalia has now reached hurricane status. The National Hurricane Center reporting the Category 1 storm